season of waiting that requires patience. But if all you and I are waiting for is December 24th or December 25th and some gifts and some family celebration, then we have missed the power of the gospel, both today and every day in our life. Because the truth is, the brokenness, the injustice, the need for Christ to come again is evident in your life and in mine every day. Every time you hit your knees in prayer and cry out that God would move, you're left to wait, that God would work and act and listen. I venture a guess that every single one of us in our life right now has some situation that has us waiting patiently. Raise your hand if you are being asked to wait in something. Waiting, and sometimes this waiting is not an active, patient waiting, but it is an impatient, crying out, pushing back to God. My question to you, and these come out of the book that we've chosen for the adult Advent devotional, what is the waiting teaching you? Are you allowing yourself to learn in your waiting? Or are you just so frustrated that God's not on your timeline that you're doing all the talking and none of the listening? What are you learning in your waiting? I want you to think for a moment about somebody in your life who is patient. When you've thought of that person, just raise your hand. I'm not going to ask you to share. I want you to think of somebody in your life who's patient. You have someone? How do you feel in the presence of someone who's patient? Peace. There is a peace in the presence of someone who is patient with you. What else do you feel? When you're in the presence of that person, or you were before, what do you feel? You feel hope. Being in the presence of someone who is patient gives you hope that you don't have to be perfect. That whatever just happened isn't the end of the story. There's more to be written. What else do you feel when someone is patient and you get to walk with them? In the last service, somebody said, I don't feel judged. I feel just able to be, oh come, Emmanuel, God with us, not to condemn the world, just to be with us, that we would be saved. You feel loved. Patience has this quiet way of creating grace and space that says, I see more than what you say you see right now. I believe more than just whatever happened between us in a discussion. I love enough to hold the grace. Somebody last service said grace. I just feel like there's a mercy when someone is patient with me. So if we know this, why is it so hard to be patient? What is it that gets in the way of us being able to hear that love is patient and kind and act on it? Why is it so hard for us to yield? I think one of the first things is we do not like to be out of control. And patience assumes that the timeline in your life belongs to somebody else. You have asked God to move and God has not yet, and that marks in your heart, you're not in charge. Scripture tells us that a day is like 1,000 years in the sight of God. And 1,000 years are like one day. If you have ever walked through grief, needed to be patient in waiting that God would heal you, you know that a day can feel like 1,000 years. 1,000 years of waiting for one that you love to be restored or to be back with you. And the 30 plus years of their life before feels like one day. The timeline is not ours. It is God's. I think a next reason why we struggle to wait is we worry we don't have the strength or the ability to endure the pain, the waiting, the questions, or the struggle. We want it fixed now because I don't know if I can hold on, God. And that's where that Isaiah 40 scripture is so powerful, because God promises us in Isaiah 40:31, those who wait for the Lord, if you wait on him, what will happen to your strength? It will be renewed. You don't have to do it in your own power. The waiting doesn't require you to have every answer. In fact, when you feel like today is the end of your rope, God gives you just bread for today. And tomorrow, he'll do the same thing. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. If you've ever watched a bird of that size mount up, there is this airflow that pushes up. God will push you up, push you through when you wait on him. For all those young people, Scripture speaks clearly to youth here. It's not in your strength. You think you can run? You think you're stronger and more capable. When you have God working with you in the waiting, there is a different way in which you are given strength and power. Another reason that we do not like to be patient in our waiting is that we want immediate results, immediate resolution, immediate evidence of change, and immediate return on our investment. Raise your hand if you have ever prayed or poured into somebody or believed for somebody and it didn't change fast enough and you want return on your investment. Go ahead, tell me the truth. Lord, this has been at the top of what I have asked for. Have I not been faithful in putting this before you? We want this immediate response, and being patient in the waiting when we believe that God hears and answers prayers requires an openness to the fact that what we ask for may not be God's desire. And who wants to be patient in waiting in that? Two more reasons I think we struggle to wait. I think sometimes the longer we wait, the more time that passes, the more doubts that form within us. Christ will come again. How many years has it been since Jesus was born? How many years are we to wait, God? How many years am I to pray for my child before they come to see your face? How many years, God, do I have to ask this same thing? And the doubts come. Will I really move through this pain? This grief is taking way longer than I want. Will God really provide? I don't see what I want to see. Will Christ really come again? Will I really change? Patience provokes in us a perseverance in faith. Someone who is patient is often someone who is extraordinarily faithful because they believe what is not yet before them. They believe that God is still not finished. And the last thing that came to me as I reflected on my own struggle to be patient in waiting is that I just plain have too much to do, right? I have so much to do that I can't be patient, because being patient would require leaving open a space for God to move, and I'd like to fill it with 6 other things on my task list. And God said, that's not what I asked. That is not what I asked. I told you to wait without knowing what you're waiting for. Examples in Scripture of times that people have lost patience in the waiting, and I offer these to you because I believe we see ourselves in these stories. Sarah was promised that she would have a son that would be part of an extension of nations, and yet she got tired of waiting, impatient with God, and she told her husband to go lie with whom? Hagar. Go lie with Hagar, and then Ishmael is born. Raise your hand if you've ever gotten tired of being patient and you decided to fix it yourself. She still had to wait. She just had a mess that she had to wait through. The people of Israel lost patience. Think about this. Moses goes up to the top of the mountain, is literally engaging with God, receiving the 10 Commandments, and down below, the people got tired of waiting patiently, and they took off all their gold jewelry, and they melted it together, and they formed a golden calf. They said, you know what, God? I am tired of being patient for you. I'm going to seek another God. Raise your hand if you've ever sought something else. I'm going to try. Go ahead. You're all scared to raise your hand. But God knows, right? I'm going to try this my way, Lord, because you are taking too long up on that mountain. I need something I can see or touch. What about the Israelites who lost patience as they journeyed to the promised land? Has your change ever taken too long that you just started complaining every day and all you could see were the minor details that were wrong? And you finally said, you know what, Lord? I don't want to be woke anymore. I don't want to have eyes to see. I don't want to see the places you want me to change. I just want to go back to Egypt and be enslaved. Ever felt like that? I'd rather not feel this burden to pray for this person. Just numb me again. I'd rather not see the injustice. I just want to go back to being numb. God won't let you, by the way. He didn't let them, and he won't let you. The Israelites lost patience waiting for God's salvation, and they demanded a king, and God even said, this is not what you want. A king is going to send your men off into war. A king is going to tax you. A king is going to put all of this pressure on you. And we said, no, God, I'm sure this is what I need. I'm sure the promotion is going to change my life. I'm sure this job is what is supposed to be the answer. I'm sure this house is what I need. I'm sure this next step, you just can't see it, Lord, but I can see the ways that will make me more faithful to you. God says, okay, here's your king. And the Israelites suffered. This is one of my favorites. We read about how David was anointed to become the next king, the greatest king of Israel. But do you know how many years he waited patiently? And if you have ever been in leadership and the people said, David, what are you doing? Take your authority and move. Take over. Saul is weak. He's crazy. You were anointed. David said, no, it's not time. I will patiently wait until God opens that space. How many times have we rushed ahead? We said God opened the way when it was really the person next to us who said that's the way you should go. The disciples lost patience when they tried to cast out demons and they got angry, and Jesus shows up and said, these kind only come out with prayer and fasting, that dreaded word fasting. Take a step back, Jesus says. Every day, center your heart on me. Mary, I love Mary. Mary lost patience waiting for Jesus. 3 days he tarried before he showed up. And when Jesus showed up, what happened to Lazarus? He was dead. Mary said, I am tired of waiting patiently for you, Lord. You said that you would be here. Mary couldn't see that Lazarus would come to be the only man who was bodily raised from the dead, except for the 2 children of foreign widows in the Old Testament. Sometimes God's no is a bigger yes. Peter lost patience in the Garden of Gethsemane. The soldiers showed up. He looked around. He thought, we have got to act, Jesus. Enough patience and enough waiting. He cuts off the ear of the guard, and like Mr. Potato Head, Jesus picks it up and sticks it back on. You are not doing this your way. The patience in the waiting. Patience invites us to trust that God's time is different than ours. And that requires a surrender that none of us really love to make. Patience opens us to this active and attentive waiting. This way in which we are present, but we are watchful. We are awake. We are believing that God is moving, speaking, and will come again. And we are ready when God speaks. And the last, and I want to close with this, and I think we miss this, when our lives are not what we want them, when we stand in the middle of grief, when our prayers have not been answered like we want, when Christ has not come again, and the injustice and the confusion in this nation and all that's occurring in South America, we say, God, this is not what I wanted for life. There is a power in standing in the middle of where we are and being attentive to the details and the small ways that God is moving.